Hey, welcome back. Welcome back to this edition of the Pest Geek Podcast. I am Frank Hernandez, your Pest Geek. Hey, we're going to be discussing pesticide bans. And this has been something that I've been talking about since I started this podcast over 5 years ago. And I started talking about this, and when I talked about it, I was so ridiculed. I was so chastised. I said, you're crazy. What you're saying isn't going to happen. And I said, guys, we're going the way, okay, of Europe and Canada, where you're going to lose the majority of your pesticides and you're going to lose a lot of active ingredients. And not only are you going to lose the chemical, but it is not going to be through the legislation of losing the chemical that you're going to get the restriction. It's going to be by cities passing bans on pesticide use in cities and in communities and in counties and in possibly even states. And the state that is leading the way is California. California is banning pesticides, and more cities and counties are putting bans on pesticides like rodenticides, and they're banning all types of organophosphates, even in agriculture. And California is one of the largest agricultural producing states that we have. So they are dealing with this, and there is federal registration stuff going on that they're going to be banned. But look at what I did back in 2015. Okay. Let me show you here for a second here. Go to 2015. Here's my podcast that I did on October 12th. A pesticide ban is coming to a city near you. And yet, people told me, oh, that's not going to happen. I said, guys, I'm starting to see it. I know what's coming. Where this podcast was on one city that banned, okay, the application of pesticides to lawns on residential properties, but they didn't exempt themselves on government property or on parks and recreation. Yet you personally were not allowed to apply the pesticide to your lawn because they banned it in that city. And everybody chastised me for it when I put this out. I got more hate mail on this than anything. And if you look now, if you go to nontoxiccommunities.com, non-toxic cities, you will see an entire list. Look at this. Of city after city after city after county that has banned pesticide use. Look at this. This is not a joke. Over 75 bans are in here right now. You can count them. There are over 75 bans. We got a ban here in Miami-Dade County on the use of glyphosate, Roundup, because supposedly it causes cancer. Now, that hasn't been demonstrated yet. That is not the EPA's finding. And we can have a debate all day long about what the EPA is doing. Let me switch over here so you can get a better look at me on what the EPA does. Okay? But the reality is that there are bans going on everywhere across the country. And this isn't something that is happening in California. This is happening in the Northeast, and it just happened in my backyard where we got banned. And I had the privilege and the honor of teaching about 75 Miami-Dade County employees that are going to be using the new herbicide, the new label on how to properly apply this product. And the challenges they're going to face with the new amount of labor they're going to need and the effectiveness of this new product. When I asked the question, how many of you that have been doing this and applying herbicides have been doing it for more than 30 years? None. How many of you, the only herbicide that you ever applied was glyphosate? And everybody raised their hand. See, for the only time they've been using chemicals and using an herbicide, this is really all they've used. They don't know anything else. They don't know any other mode of action. They don't have any other training in any other type of active ingredient except this one. And so now the reality is I got to teach an entire county on how to use the new product. And there is a lot of restrictions with these newer products that they weren't aware of. This product is actually more restrictive. It's actually less effective. So what you run into with these bans is the alternatives that are out there. People are thinking they're going to be able to switch from X to Y, and it's going to be just as effective, when the reality is that you're going to have to make more applications more times a year, which means you're adding more pounds of active ingredient of a certain product because the unintended consequences of it. The amount of protection that you now need, because this product has actually a more restrictive label for PPE than did glyphosate. So now you have cities having to invest in a lot more equipment. They have to get goggles for everybody applying this product. They have to make sure, in standard PPE, we're used to this, guys. But understand, we're talking about the landscape industry. And when we talk about pesticide use, we're not just talking about GHP. We're talking about lawn. We're talking about an ornamental. We're talking about termite. Okay? We're talking about golf course industry. We're talking about the landscape industry in itself doing something else. So these things that are going on that are affecting us as an industry, it's going to affect the homeowners and people and the property owners. Just Malibu just came out where they got a whole city that they want to ban every pesticide. They're banning rodenticides. They're going to get overrun with rats in that city. They're going to having viruses and diseases associated with having an over-communication. Basically, what's going to happen in Malibu is going to turn into an inner city ghetto infested with roaches because they're wanting to ban every pesticide. When you want to ban every single pesticide, that's just ludicrous. That's not based on science. That is based on one or two people on council that decided they have the power and they went power crazy on this issue and lost it. There's no rhyme or reason for it. There's no logical thought and scientific thought of, and of course, California says you can't do that. That's illegal. The state of California, you cannot ban every pesticide. You're going to have an epidemic on your hands. I can't wait until they get the first, all these epidemics, and then all of a sudden their $20 million mansion falls off the side of a cliff because it got destroyed by termites. I want to see how far that's going to go. That's just ludicrous. So we got to balance the science with the facts. So, what was it? Chlorpyrifos that got banned now for use. Just banned. There's no more use of it in California for crops. And I said, well, it's an organophosphate. Geez, they got so many more active ingredients than we do. Okay? What's the deal there? You got one organophosphate. How much are they actually using? So understand that. Let me go over here again. Let me show you something. Whoop, I lost my little screen here. You got toxic cities, and we're going to go over here. I want you to see this. House of Representative Bill, H.R. 230, which bans chlorpyrifos completely. Bans it completely in the United States. Well, that got approved by the House of Representatives. That got passed. They actually had a ban on it on the EPA. President came out and said, no, it's perfectly safe. And EPA basically challenged this decision and reversed it. And I don't know if that's good or bad. I can't tell you. I'm just telling you what the news is. I can't tell you, how you, I mean, I'm only telling you what the weather's like. I can't tell you how to dress. But the reality is that that's what's happening. So California goes and says, hey, we're going to ban it. Take a look at this. You can see it right here. I'll get you a little bit bigger. And I'm shooting a video for my audio podcast listeners are wondering what the hell is Frank doing and what is he talking about seeing. This is a podcast. No, we're doing a video podcast now of the entire podcast. So that we can basically give people the media that they want, where they want it, how they want it. But California acts to prohibit clariferous pesticide. So that's already a done deal. Now, it isn't like the farmers didn't have any warning about this was coming. They did. They knew about it. They are always prepared for this. They're doing testing on new products always. Problem is there's not a whole lot of new active ingredients. In a group, in the pesticide, the pest control products group, Michael Burke put out a post this week. If you're what three active ingredients would you fight to protect if you were going to lose them? And some people lost their freaking mind. Other people, the majority, just didn't care. And this is the problem in the industry, that you're going to sit there and wait until somebody does something for you to bellyache about it. You're non-responsive. This is the problem with our society as a whole. This is not just in the pest control. Most of society will agree something needs to be done, except only 2 to 3% are actually screaming loud enough to be heard so that things change. And that's the problem, that 95, 97% of people are inactive. We have a generation of iGeners who will go on social media and complain about everything, but when it comes to showing up at the table to actually do something about it, they're not there. The next generation is just not there. They're not engaged. They're not really engaged. All the data shows that. The evidence shows that. So us as pest control professionals, okay, that we are supposed to be involved in this industry. Well, because it happened in the crop industry. It didn't happen in our industry. And you will wait till a ban comes to your city, and then you will just start screaming about it, complaining about it on social media. Yet you'll never stop working that day to go to the courthouse and to testify and to be active and to sign the petition and to get active. You'll do nothing about it. PCT Magazine had the petition for certain bans in California. The last rodenticide ban. 2/3 of you say you're not actively involved in it. You, in your own survey in PCT Magazine, says you were not involved. Okay, so now we're looking at this and say, well, how serious is this problem with the chlorpyrifos being banned in California, and what does it affect? Well, here's the economic and pest management evaluation of the withdrawal of chlorpyrifos. 6 major California commodities, meaning 6 major crops. And I said, okay, so let's see what it is. All right, so we go down here and we say, okay, what are the 6 major crops? Well, we're looking at alfalfa, almond, citrus, cotton, grapes, and walnuts. Okay, so I say, okay, there's alternatives. I mean, the big 33% of the pesticide used in California is insecticide, and there's basically 5 major insecticides used: pyrethroids, neonics, I think indoxacarb, and I forgot what other active ingredient. But they got way more than we do available as pest control. And I said, okay, let's look at this. So now the current chlorpyrifos program for alfalfa is per acre, $4.28 an acre to spray it with chlorpyrifos. Okay, the next alternative is $13.77. That's a 221% increase. And there's 153,600 acres in 2016 of alfalfa. That seems to be the most difficult because of the weevils. that affect the alfalfa crops. And those are much more difficult to control. Almonds are going to go from $15 to $20, 35% increase. That's not a major issue. Now, considering that the nation's almond supply, over 99% of the almond supply comes from California, and they export about a third of it, or almost half of it, I think about 49% gets exported. Citrus, we're going to go from 28 to 42, a 49% increase, not a major. Grapes, oh my God, they're going to see a huge, I'm sorry, not walnuts, I said almonds. And raisins and grapes, they went from $14, check that, to $68, okay, which is a 437% increase in the cost of spraying grapes. I said, man, is the price of wine going to go through the roof? Because that's my next question is, what's going to happen to the cost of these commodities when the price goes through the roof? Well, walnuts, and it wasn't almonds that are 99%, it's walnuts, I'm sorry. Walnuts are the ones that are 99% of the nation's, it's a big, they export most of the world's walnuts, especially to China, and which is a big buyer of walnuts. So you're looking at $15.25 to 64, so 320%. All right, so it's only really about 6 crops that get affected. Major problem for California because one of these things, they do a ton of wine. So I said, okay, let me look and see what's going to happen with wine. Well, let's look at walnuts. California, walnuts produces 99% of the walnuts grown in the United States, 30% of the world's production. 38% of the world's production in walnuts. Now, the biggest problem that California faces with walnuts is not losing chlorpyrifos for spraying those trees. It's the problem that they have with the post fumigation that they have to do to walnuts with methyl bromide. Check this out. See, they have to be fumigated because other countries will not allow the product to enter the country unless they've been fumigated. Here's the thing. Normally, it's 3 to 12 hours with methyl bromide. The next, which is phosphine, is 4 to 10 days. What that does to the crop, if they actually get rid completely and they don't allow methyl bromide to be used anymore, then we're going to see a real spike in the cost of walnuts in the world. Okay? And so so I said, okay, let me see what else. I went to wine. Well, grapes doesn't seem to be that big of a problem right now. Napa's wine industry boosts environmental sustainability. Here is the Napa Valley Register. Napa growers ahead of the statewide ban on harmful pesticides of chlorpyrifos. And what Napa Valley says, it says, hey, guess what? We haven't even sprayed it in a year. They were ahead of it. They're looking at being more sustainable. So they're not really being affected by it. Walnut growers, one of the biggest things facing walnut growers is not the pesticide. It's tariffs. We understand. So I'm looking at this and I'm looking at, hey, what's going to happen with all these commodities coming out of California? And what's going to happen with all these farmers that have to raise all their prices? Well, there isn't a single chatter from any of these magazines on the cost. Okay, so I'm looking, okay, maybe, in alfalfa, California almonds. Well, they're looking at another 500 million pounds of producing almonds. There isn't one chatter from any of these guys going, the price is going to now increase from any of the commodities traders. None of these guys. Lower prices, chlorpyrifos scrutiny dominates talk with alfalfa growers. The problem with them is they can't get their premium alfalfa. They're having to sell the low quality and medium quality alfalfa. Okay. And that's where their price has been. But when you look down here at where this dominated the conversation, it doesn't. The problem that they have with alfalfa and the alfalfa weevil is that they're very difficult to control, and there are no other alternatives that are as good or as cheap as chlorpyrifos. Here's what's going to happen, guys. The chemical industry is going to immediately get on this, and within a year, they will have a new active ingredient to deal with a lot of this. Because nothing creates change. Necessity is the mother of invention. It doesn't kill me. What is going to happen if we lose all of the products that we're currently using in this country? We'll have to do what Canada has done. They adapted. That's the trend. What you got to think about is the trend that is happening. I'm warning you and preparing you about the trend that is coming. That Europe is effectively controlling pests in their properties and in homes, and so is Canada. And what's going to happen is labor is going to increase because as IPM, integrated pest management, you're going to have to be integrated pest management professionals. What this country has gotten used to is the cheap chemical prices and the ability for a spray and pray guy to come in and spray your baseboards every month and charge you $35. And what's going to happen is that's going to be gone. Okay? That is what's going to happen in this country, that you're going to have to be real pest management professionals, learn real integrated pest management, and people are going to have to repair their homes, and they're going to have to seal their homes. Right now, people are like, well, can't you use a product and throw it in the attic and get rid of the rats? Yes, you can, and kill all the rats in there and have a stink, but the rats are going to get back in because you're not spending the money to make those repairs. And I know what people are telling me. Well, there are parts of the country where 100-year-old homes are not going to get repaired. They're going to get it done. Or they're going to be inundated with rats when the community bans rodenticide. When you've got an infrastructure in California, like in, let's say, San Francisco, who has a very old city. Well, look at London. 300-year-old buildings. It takes real knowledge, real professional, real understanding to control a rodent problem. Much more difficult to control a rodent problem in London than it is in New York. Guaranteed. And yet, we are not looking at this and saying, what's going to happen? The reality is that we're going to end up with less chemicals and really a higher grade of technician. And this is why I'm doing this podcast. And this is why I'm doing the online training. And this is why I'm educating the world on IPM. Because I know what's coming, and what's going to happen is all you guys that depended on your little chemicals to solve every problem are now going to have to go to exclusion work and sell higher level of service. And then you will be paid as a true professional, where you're getting paid the $25 and $30 an hour, because you no longer have people in the industry. There's going to be supply and demand. Less technicians, higher demand. I mean, that's what really the industry wants. That's what we want as pest control professionals, right? That's what we want. Yet you're not going to get it until this happens. See, what necessitates something new is getting rid of the old. It's that simple, but that's not what you want to hear. You want me to tell you, no, you should be banding together with the industry and talking about the bans and saving the bans. And look, we've made an entire business. We started dealing with nitrogen blockout dates 2 years before they were even there, because we heard the chatter. We know what's coming, and we prepare for it. And we got rid of nitrogen completely in our spraying of lawns and shrubs and trees. We don't even use it, and we don't even need it. And we manage multi-million-dollar properties for people who are highly demanding because they're not needed. If you understand how to fix that soil biology, which takes 1 to 2 years, the problem is, here's what the reality in America is. Chemicals are cheap and available. And as long as you can buy something cheap and available and you can apply it, then the instant fix and the instant result. The biggest complaint that universities have about IPM training is that people are addicted to a quick, fast, cheap solution. And it's going to come a day when you're not going to have a cheap solution that is fast. You're going to have to adapt to waiting. It's either spray and pray or bait and wait. We went with bait and wait and spraying outside where we can control things. You see, there is the difference of what is happening in our country. So I'm going through this and I'm seeing what's going to happen. California loses pyrifos. What's next? That's from Crop Life. And the reality is that next is the next thing. It's done. It's gone. Now everybody has to get creative. And nothing happens until you're forced to get creative. Necessity is the mother of invention. We will have a new active ingredient. We will have a new combination. We will have more organic crops. We will have something. It isn't the end of the world. But understand, this is the new trend. This is the new normal. This is what's coming to America. And you're not listening to me and you're not hearing me. And I will continue to say this and repeat it and teach and train and exhort and exhaust myself until America gets it. That everybody in America understands it and where we're going. So I hope that this podcast has been helpful to you. If it has, do me a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Give it a thumbs up. Share it with your friends. And until next time, have a pestacular day.